Hi, everybody. Welcome to Health Talk. My name is Dean, completely unqualified to do any health talk. So, brought along a very good friend of mine, and she is a world-renowned virologist. She is a doctor. She has got dozens of years of education nobody else has. And so, what we like to do is bring maybe the most important voice when it comes to vaccinology, virology, pandemics, infectious diseases to talk about North America in a time when the Trump regime is trying desperately to kill as many people with infectious disease as possible. We're going to start with measles. We're going to end with RFK in Denmark. Please welcome to the program, Dr. Angela Rasmussen. Ladies and gentlemen, crushed the name that time. Just wanted to tell you, crushed it.
Did.
Crushed it.
Absolutely. It's right in time for the conversation about Denmark since, I'm Norwegian.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm only coming into the knowledge that Denmark and Norway are not friends. I know there's a Viking rivalry that goes back thousands of years, but I have a Danish intelligence guy, Jacob Carsbo, that I have on the show all the time. We're doing another show tomorrow to talk about, because he's a former Danish intelligence officer, former UN Security Council member, and so he's plugged in. And a couple of weeks ago we were laughing, and I'm like, "What do you think Norway's going to do?" He goes, Norway doesn't do anything. They just collect money. They just collect oil money and tell everybody to stay out of the country. That's what Norway does. And I found out you were Norwegian, and so we started to have a little tete-a-tete. I didn't know that the Norwegians and the Danes famously don't like each other. No idea.
Yeah, they don't. They also don't like the Swedes. Like they all don't like each other. Basically, it's like
Norway doesn't like the Swedes, doesn't like Denmark, and it goes for all three of you in a circle. You all hate each other. Is that the deal?
Yeah, because they've been conquering each other for hundreds of years or trying to.
Okay, yeah.
In many
Finland?
cases.
Is Finland in on this too, or is it just you guys?
Finland's in on it a little bit, but their language is really different. I never heard my grandfather talking about the Finns. That was the thing. It was mostly the Danes and the Swedes. Also the Irish and the Dutch, but mostly the Danes and the Swedes.
Okay, so what's the beef before we get to health talk and measles, which, by the way, famously making a huge comeback in the United States and in Canada. We'll get to why. What's the beef? Like, you haven't been able to bury the Viking hatchets. You just continue to get upset about shit that happened in the the 600s. Is that?
Well, no, it was really more like after that. It was like in the thousands, I guess. It sort of happened. So the settlement of Iceland was in the 9th century. That was all my people, the Norwegians. Iceland is one of the few places in the world that had no indigenous people living there. So it's my people. But anyways, they became like the Icelandic version. Otherwise, like the Norwegians, the Danes, and the Swedes just kept invading each other, basically, and trying to conquer each other. And that's more or less it. There were various treaties, unions, things like that, where most of the time the Danes would manipulate things so that they would be in charge. Another time, they ceded Norway, they just gave Norway to Sweden. That's bullshit. So my grandfather just used to talk a lot of shit because he was from Oslo.
And so, all right.
Well, so he had a lot of these, ingrained Scandinavian prejudices that I've inherited.
We have not talked or covered enough of the Scandinavian beefs, where it's like the whitest people getting mad at the whitest people from another super white country. That's a culture war we need to bring to the fore, I think.
Yeah.
I really do.
Right? We're all related and we all have the same names, too. My colleague, Christian Andersen, who is Danish, and I have had this fight for 5 years about whether or not it's okay to put ketchup on hot dogs because that's what they do in Denmark. And no, thank you. That's anathema to me.
You don't put ketchup on your hot dog?
No. I mean, you're Canadian. It's the ketchup thing. No, I've only been to Norway once, but I don't put ketchup on anything.
So what do you put on your hot dog? Is it just mustard?
Mustard, yeah. Mustard, onions, I guess. No,
you know who does that too? You know who does that too? Steve Schmidt, our buddy Steve Schmidt from the American movement.
He's got great taste.
He's just a ketchup guy. I wonder if he's Norwegian too. But you're Norwegian/American living in Canada. You got you're 2-to-1 on the ketchup side because of your American and Canadian ties. You should be able to leave that behind. Have you even tried it? Have you even given it a go?
I've eaten ketchup chips. I have eaten ketchup. Of course, I don't like it, though. I've never liked it. So I'm a bad American and a bad Canadian permanent resident.
And a fucking great Norwegian and one of the world's most important virologists right now. Health talk. We just started this last week, and we pick a couple of subjects. You can ask us questions if you're a paid sub of Dr. Angela Rasmussen or paid sub of myself here at deanblundell.substack.com. Please rifle your questions. We're going to deal with measles making a big comeback. South Carolina reported hundreds of cases. And as you know, when hundreds of cases are confirmed, there are thousands of cases that are not. We've got Canada. We lost our measles designation recently because it's running amok. I want to get your thoughts on it, but I want you to start where you think you should start about why. You can go back to, disinformation. You can start with the pandemic. You can start with disinformation, wherever you want to start because you're you. What the fuck is going on with measles?
Yeah, I mean, this is an effort that's been going on for a really long time. So if you really want to go way back, and sorry, I have a dog here who's moving like my thing around.
I do too. I do
But
too. He's over here farting around again.
yeah, she's just being like really on it because she sees that I'm doing something that she doesn't get. Anyways,
Okay.
so 1998, this guy Andrew Wakefield writes this paper in the Lancet, which is a big medical journal, that says that basically the MMR vaccine causes autism, and this paper was eventually retracted. Wakefield lost his license over it, but in this paper, this is where this whole idea came from: that the measles vaccine, basically the MMR vaccine, is dangerous and causes autism. And so ever since then, like, he's basically made a fortune, like being the guy who lost his license for wrongly claiming that measles vaccines cause autism. He also introduced this idea that like the combination vaccine is what causes the autism. Like, it's not the measles vaccine, it's the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine all given together that causes the autism.
Mhm.
So this idea like has been picking up steam and picking up steam, and there was a big court case because he didn't want to lose his license, and he sued, and it was in the media. And then he dated Elle Macpherson for a couple years because she's like crazy into wellness stuff.
Oh, what
And
a shame. What a shame.
yeah, and he became like this. I mean, he's not an attractive man. I don't know how he ended up landing like a supermodel, but they're broken up now, I think. Anyways, so he's made a lot of money off of this, and in the process of this, became friends with the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has done a lot with him in terms of the foundation that he started, Children's Health Defense, which is basically like a crazy anti-vax organization.
Yeah.
So they've been like spreading this for a very, very long time and decreasing confidence in the vaccine. And measles is such a contagious virus, right? Like that if you get exposed to one like infectious particle of measles, you're probably getting measles if you're not vaccinated against it. So it's really, really infectious. So you have to have really high levels of herd immunity to control it in your population. And this is what people don't get about vaccination a lot of times. I think they think that vaccines protect you from getting sick, which they do in most cases. But some people, vaccines don't work very well in. Some people can't take vaccines, they're allergic or whatever. So you have to have a threshold in the population of people who are immune to prevent viruses from spreading in them, because viruses have to have a host. So if there's a population where the virus can't find another host to pass on to, then it's basically hitting a dead end, and it's not going to be able to circulate in that population.
What's that herd immunity number?
For measles, it's about
yeah.
95%. So this slow erosion of confidence in the MMR vaccine has brought, in some places now, vaccination levels down below that 95% threshold. So we're starting to see measles outbreaks because measles has not been eliminated from the world. There are a lot of countries that do have a lot of measles problems and that don't vaccinate. Or don't vaccinate everybody, and so it can get imported, basically. And in Canada and the U.S., in most measles outbreaks are caused by unvaccinated Americans or Canadians who are traveling abroad and bringing it back. It's not caused actually by immigrants who are unvaccinated bringing it in. So that's something I wanted to clear up because that's a point that the anti-vaxxers continually raise these days.
No way.
I wonder why.
Are you telling me that the Christian nationalist, anti-science, anti-vaxxer, white nationalist, Maple MAGA community blames infectious disease on immigrants? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I'm just a simple vaccine researcher. I'm not supposed to get political about this stuff. Yes, that is exactly what's happening. And that happened at the last advisory committee on immunization practices meeting too. They started talking about the hepatitis B vaccine being brought into the U.S. by unvaccinated immigrants effectively. So measles was eliminated in the U.S. and Canada 20 years ago. Canada, as you pointed out, lost its elimination status. And that happens when you have a measles outbreak that has persisted for a year or more, where you've had continuous transmission of that. So the US, the Texas measles outbreak started in January. So that's when they'll have to put all the epi data together to make sure that this virus has been transmitted continuously, but I'm quite certain that it has, because even though the outbreak in Texas has ended, this has actually caused a huge outbreak in Mexico as well, in Mennonite communities and also in Canada. And there have been 14 people actually who've died of measles in Mexico the last time I checked, and there may have been more since. It's been a while since I
Just
looked
in
at those.
last year, sample
Yeah,
sizes last year. Yeah.
from this outbreak. And some of that is just bad luck because there was an issue with sourcing measles vaccines in Mexico in this one state. But if you have the moral of the story here is if you have a large enough population of people who have not been vaccinated against measles, then you are going to have measles outbreaks. And the
Okay.
size of that outbreak will be dependent on how many people have not had the vaccine. Because prior infection is thought to give lifetime immunity. And also, the vaccine itself is a live attenuated vaccine, which means that it actually is measles virus. It just doesn't make you sick. So either way, you end up having pretty much immunity for life. Older people actually should ask their doctors if they need to get their antibody titers checked. But in general, it's a very, very good, effective vaccine if you get 2 doses of it. So, but if there's people who are just not vaccinating their kids, then that means that there's an ever expanding population of children who are going to be potentially susceptible to that. And if it gets imported into the community, then it will spread outwards from there.
So, can you put a number to the drop in MMR vaccines in the past 5 to 6 years since we've had the mass vaccine revolt and the anti-science community and a president and a regime in the United States that's actively trying to tell us that we should just drink blue iodine and eat dirt and we're going to be just fine? Can you put a number to that drop, and can you draw a direct correlation to these outbreaks, not just in Texas, South Carolina, the most recent one, Mexico, and the unfortunate deaths? Canada's had a couple of deaths. Alberta, rural Ontario, hotbeds. I mean, we can get to the geography and the demographics, but what are those numbers, and what is the impetus for the drop that you're seeing according to the research that you do?
Well, so I don't really do that kind of research, but it kind of depends. I mean, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
It really is community specific, right? So in Texas, this was driven by a Mennonite community that's they're very tight. They span multiple countries. There are multiple communities that are sort of networked together. And many of those people in that community don't vaccinate in general. So it's a community where something like this, when it happens, just really takes off. Also, because there is so much travel and mobility and people traveling between different,
You mean in
different
those
community
religious
centers.
sects, they've gotten harder when it comes to vaccinology, and has that always been the case, or is that sort of amplified and fortified their belief system when COVID happened?
So, I mean, it really depends. And I don't know that you can even generalize. I mean, this is why there's a big geographic element to it as well.
Mm.
I know I've had students in my lab who were Mennonites and grew up in Mennonite communities, and they're, in a virology lab working, on vaccine studies. So definitely not anti-vax. I have a requirement that everybody has to be vaccinated before they come work in my lab. You can't
Oh, you're
even
so
generalize.
woke. You're so woke with your restrictions.
I'm an extreme vaccine enthusiast, right? Like, I'm not going to be studying products that I wouldn't use myself. At one point, I was really disappointed because there's this guy, he's an anti-vaxxer named Steve Kirsch, and
Yeah,
he was challenging people to debates and says that he's going to pay them $1 million to debate them. And I actually accepted his offer.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said that I would only do it if he donated all to COVAX, and then he ghosted me. But apparently now he's been challenging people with just 100K to take every childhood vaccine on the schedule. And so me and one of my colleagues were like, yeah, sign us
Good.
up. Like, No
Yeah.
problem. I'll do that for 100 grand. You take research funding where you can get it these days.
Yeah.
But he also never materialized with my $100,000. So
Oh,
I
shocker.
haven't gotten my boosters.
What's really funny is I had Viva Frey challenge me to a debate about 3 weeks ago based on the ostrich shit, by the way. Because I told
Again?
him that yeah. Well, it was the same one. It was the one that happened. Actually, it was a couple months ago when you and I were talking. And,
It was a month ago.
and I said, here's my number. DM me. Let's set this up and have a great time together. I replied to that 4 times, and Viva Free ended up blogging me. That's the thing, and we'll leave the lessons in cowardice with the hillbillies right now. We'll leave it over to the side because I'm enthralled with the measles thing. But it's the same group of people that tell you that you shouldn't have to get vaccinated. Then when you ask them to show up, put up, or shut up, they never do. Right? Like
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about. But and I know you don't understand these specific demographics, but it seems like it's rural. It seems like it's in overtly kind of closed in communities where certain perspectives and information doesn't necessarily get in or get out. You can say it's in certain religious or Mennonite communities. I mean, I know for a fact it is the anti-vax movement. My brother's a pastor. I used to be involved in the church when I was very young. There is a very serious anti-vaccine sentiment that a lot of those communities have rolled back. Like this was never a topic of conversation in the church when I
Mhm.
went to church. Everybody got vaccinated at school, and there was never like, oh, this is against our religion. This is, Jesus has his own vaccine, all that other shit that we've been seeing on placards and seeing on social media for the past little while. So that's what I'm interested in because we were overly vaccinated. And as you said, vaccine extremists or enthusiasts. But, the bottom line is that something changed 5, 6 years ago, right? You can see it in the data.
Yeah, and I mean, I think some of it is that this really started to take off and it started to appeal to people more broadly. And so that's kind of where I was going to, where it's
Okay.
really hard to generalize. It's kind of like, I mean, it's like horseshoe effect, right? You have these people on one end who might be extremely conservative, very Christian, very, very sort of fundamentalist, nationalist points of view. And then on the other hand, you have like hippy dippy people who are like extremely anti like allopathic medicine, or modern medicine. Essentially, they are into supplements, they are into energy, like all of the various wellness.
Kombucha and Reiki crystals. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so you end up, having these people like inhabiting sort of the same space, and so they respectively, this anti-vax movement appeals to a lot of different groups of people. And I think in the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, the anti-vaxxers are very, very good at what they do. It's a very, very profitable business to be in. Like, so Del Bigtree is another one of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s friends, and he has a whole media empire, basically, called the High Wire, or the Informed Consent Action Network. He was manager of RFK's presidential campaign. He was manager of his political action committee, I think. And he is basically like the Alex Jones of the anti-vax movement. He has huge reach.
What's his name
Um,
again?
his name is Del Bigtree. He almost
Del
died of
Big Tree. He's,
COVID.
you know,
He almost died of
he sounds like
COVID,
a
but
character in the Big Lebowski. Del
he
Big
he
Tree.
went. I
Can't be
think
his real name.
I feel like he went to Mexico. You should see him, Dean. Look up his picture when we're done.
I'm gonna fucking do that
Um,
now.
but he looks like kind of what you'd expect him to look like. He looks like he's an anti-vax media mogul. But he like went. I think he went to Mexico or something. I could be getting this wrong, but I think he went to Mexico so that he'd get like a blood transfusion of like unvaccinated blood. um he's one of these guys who's really anti-vax, and so he and Kennedy have been making a killing together. And I think 5 6 years ago was really when their business started to go into overdrive. And Brandy Zadrozny, at now she's at MSNBC or MS Now or whatever it's called, has done some really great reporting on their financial stuff. And I mean, they were making, before the pandemic, they were making millions and millions of dollars every year. Children's Health Defense as an organization. And that's in addition to the millions that Kennedy made as a vaccine injury lawyer, which, by the way, was his job before becoming the Health and Human Services Secretary. So he's made millions of dollars personally by either litigating cases against vaccine manufacturers, against, state health departments and federal health departments and things like that for vaccine policies. And really, 5 or 6 years ago, I think, is when this really started to pick up. Also, social media became much more widely used, and so suddenly there is, new mechanisms basically for getting these messages out to a global audience,
Mm.
and that's
And
really what.
there's a profit mechanism to this for the people that have started to have this conversation on the backs of all the chaos of the pandemic, and you're drawing in, as you point out. I mean, sure, you've got your people that have religious reasons. Let's just call them religious
Mhm.
reasons for not doing this. But the broad appeal that RFK and Del Bigtree, just looked him up. He looks fabulous, by the way. He looks fabulous. He's so sun kissed. He's unbelievable.
I know.
Yeah, he's so sun kissed. He just sells supplements on the beach. It's what he does now. But they've been able to kind of hook in other people and other communities to the idea that, the big farm is no good. They're coming after you. All the other bullshit that we watched. This is an unproven science, and it's hardly unproven. There's decades and decades that have gone into this. Vaccinology's been 1,000 years, or sorry, 400 years plus in saving lives and humanity. And we pointed that out in the last health talk. None of us would be here without vaccines. But the measles one interests me, and it seems like ground zero was American Samoa, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that was a case study for that disinformation, for the Children's Health, is it the Children's Health Defense Foundation
Mhm.
that RFK was the head of, that he made millions, being the CEO and chair of. Tell me about what happened in America Small, because RFK Jr. and that institution and the regime never want to talk about this ever.
Yeah. And I mean, this is really, really fucked up, like what he did, because it wasn't just that he was like anti-vax or encouraging vaccine disinformation. He was actually actively promoting a measles outbreak. And so what happened was that this was a tragic accident, but somebody who was vaccinating babies with the MMR accidentally reconstituted 2 doses of the MMR vaccine in a muscle relaxant instead of like saline. And the children that were administered this died of an overdose of this muscle relaxant that it was accidentally brought up with. And that triggered this huge like wave of distrust of vaccines in Samoa. Because there were anti-vax organizations local to Samoa that took this opportunity, and you see this happening a lot. If there is some sort of problem with the vaccine ever, anti-vaxxers will immediately jump in and sort of imply that this is like a problem for all vaccines. And so they really decreased a lot of trust, and uptake of the MMR vaccine went way, way down in Samoa. And so there were a lot of susceptible people. So Kennedy comes on the scene, and, offers to meets all these anti-vaxxers, meets all these people, offers to promote their stuff. And a measles outbreak happens. And basically, he says, like, just let it go, and try to encourage, in fact, people getting more measles, because we want to essentially see that the vaccines don't matter and that measles is effectively good for you. He just basically wanted to do a natural experiment with people's children in another country. And what ended up happening was thousands of people got measles and 83 people died, most of them children under the age of 5. So that's what Kennedy wanted to do to satisfy his curiosity. And, I get accused of being like an evil virologist and stuff all the time. But boy, do I not do like natural experiments in human populations of children. That is incredibly fucked up and unethical. And it really, I think, speaks to what his core values are, and that is that he's a eugenicist who doesn't actually give a fuck if people are going to die as a result of his policies.
That is an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
I didn't know the longer strokes of it. I knew that he wanted to use American Samoa as a test case for not vaccinating people for measles, and as a result, close to 100 people died. I had no idea the majority were under the age of 5. I had no idea that he was the guy telling the American Samoan government and people in the government in areas that were being ravaged by measles, that just let it go. I'm RFK Jr. I'm here to defend children. I'm part of this Children's Health Defense Foundation, who had no idea what he was talking about, was lying through his teeth, was trying to use this island of individuals as a test case to try and prove to the rest of America that his deeply long held beliefs that vaccines are dangerous ended up killing 100 people, most of them children.
Yep. And that's basically what he continues to plan to do. Since we were talking about the Danish people, this is maybe a good chance to segue into that because as of yesterday, he funded a non competitive grant proposal, which means it was just somebody sent it in and they decided to fund it with $1.6 million. This is a Danish group that is friends with the current acting director of the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research at FDA, a woman who is Danish by marriage and is a big fan of Denmark and has suggested, including to the president, who issued a memo about this, that America should change its childhood vaccine schedule to be just like Denmark's because they have hardly any vaccines on there. So this
Oh, that was where Trump's whole thing about be more like Denmark came from.
Correct. It's from this woman named Tracy Beth Hogue, who moved to Denmark, got a PhD in epidemiology studying, I believe, eye diseases there, and came back and during the pandemic revealed herself to be essentially an anti-vaxxer who basically thinks that COVID vaccines give people myocarditis at a much higher rate than they actually do, and that it's much more severe than it actually is. In reality, COVID has a much higher risk of causing severe myocarditis or problems. But her whole thing has been myocarditis. And this woman is in charge of the entire drug regulatory portfolio in the US. She is the top regulator of all drugs in the US at the FDA. She's also the one who found supposedly 10 child deaths from COVID vaccines that we have yet to see the data for. And I suspect that she found these by dumpster diving in VAERS, which is a database that CDC maintains for surveillance purposes. That's very useful, but it can't be used actually to define a death that's caused by a vaccine.
Have you ever read some of the entries in the VAERS reports?
Oh, yes, I have.
The trust
Yeah.
those? Like I took a deep dive one night in VAERS because you can put anything you want in the VAERS report, right? Anybody who went and got vaccinated, you can say, "Here's what I've experienced." Some of the ones where guys were talking about how large their manhood became after they took it.
Yeah, I think there was a guy who said that he grew like a dick on his forehead. And another guy who said that he became like the Incredible Hulk. Like it's pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of wild stuff in VAERS, and there's a lot of stuff that's very clearly not vaccine injuries. But
well, I laugh every time someone cites it as part of some kind of anti-vax like expertise that they might have. There's like, well, have you read the VAERS report? I'm like, you mean the one where the guy said the vaccine made his wiener grow like 12 inches overnight, like that VAERS report? And he'll be like, well, yes. Like I've had this conversation literally with dozens of people, and they'll say, well, yes, but some of those don't matter. I'm like, well, none of them matter, dude. It's an open source document. Anybody can say whatever the fuck they
Right. And so, I mean, this is what people don't get about VAERS, right? Because it's a CDC maintained database. So people think that it's reliable. And it's called the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. So it sounds like it, is going to reliably report that. But what it's used for is actually surveillance and monitoring for safety signals. So basically, if they get enough reports of like a certain vaccine injury happening with the same vaccine, then they're like, oh, maybe we should look into that more because enough people are reporting this to VAERS.
It's an infectious disease vaccine kind of Yelp review system.
Yeah, it is kind of like an alarm. Yeah. So, I mean, this Danish stuff is like unbelievable. Like, my grandfather would be rolling over in his grave for how much I've actually had to look into good Danish scientists, like the people at the Staten Serum Institute, which is like the Danish CDC/NIH. Like Denmark actually does have a lot of really, really good scientists there.
Yeah.
But they also have people like Tracy Beth Hogue, formerly, and her friend, who I think is probably the investigator who's been awarded this $1.6 million grant because it sounds tailor-made for this person's research. And basically what they plan to do is fund a single-blinded controlled study in Guinea-Bissau, which is a very small country in West Africa, where they are going to essentially withhold the birth dose of the HPV vaccine from children and see what happens. Actually, they're going to see how it affects all-cause mortality. They're not even going to look at how well the vaccine works. They're going to look at how many of those kids just die overall. Now, Guinea-Bissau has one of the world's highest rates of child and maternal mortality. So a lot of kids die, which is probably why they do a lot of their studies there, because there's a very high child mortality rate. So they are basically going to go to a country where 20% of people are infected with hepatitis B virus, and they're going to withhold the birth dose of the vaccine for potentially 7,000 children. I
And
think they
just
said that.
watch how sick kids get. Watch when those
Watch
kids
how many of them
die.
die. Watch how many of them die. And that's what they are funding. This is a completely scientifically pointless study. There's no point in doing this. It's a very different population from the U.S. And if you get hepatitis B virus when you are a child, you will have it potentially for the rest of your life if it doesn't cause liver cancer within the next 10 to 20 years and kill you. And this is a country also that has very, very low healthcare spending per person. So there is not a robust healthcare system that any of these children who get liver cancer can go get treatment in. So it's incredibly, incredibly unethical to do a trial like this. And the whole reason for doing this is to basically provide justification for policy decisions that they've already made.
Yeah. That's the part that I can't. I mean, he tried to do it in American Samoa. Can't. Everybody dies. He's like, oh my god, this vaccine still work, and he still pushes the same bunk bullshit. And now he's trying to find a side door, going to another country with super high infant and female mortality rates because they already are dying at a young age because they already have hepatitis and HPV and they don't have great health care. And they're going to use that as another test case so they can justify any decision they make in the United States of America with a completely, totally different climate, different demographic, different health issues, the whole 9 yards. That is fucking unbelievable to me.
Yeah, you want to know what the worst part is? Yesterday, the same day that they did this, so gave $1.6 million without any type of scientific merit review to Tracy Hoag's friend, basically, and podcast buddy. They also stripped millions of dollars of grant funding from the American Academy of Pediatrics in retaliation for a lawsuit that AAP has filed against HHS because of the changes in vaccine policy that they've made.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. I wish I was making it up. Like, they're not even being discreet about it anymore.
What a bunch of petty assholes.
Yeah.
Petty, anti-science, evil assholes. And there's only there's only one reason that they're doing this is that so they can kill Americans. Like there's only one reason they're doing this. And I had this conversation with someone the other day and they're like, well, maybe they know more, maybe science needs to be questioned. I'm like, science questions itself all the time. That's the merit of science. It's test to fucking fail until you get a result where you haven't failed. That is the whole MO behind science.
Yeah.
And we have been using this test to fail concept behind science for hundreds of years when it comes to vaccinology. And you're telling me some microwaved Mel Gibson heroin addict knows better than those 400 years of testing to fail by millions of people that were educated in the space? Like, is that what you're telling me? And they all say the same thing. Well, it can't hurt to try. And I'm like, oh my God, you're kidding me. But I didn't know it was this bad. So why Denmark though? Like, what is the purpose? Because I've heard that before. Trump said that we need to be more like Denmark. Other people have said it. You've just said it. They've given a grant to some Danish researcher. What is the difference? Like, why are they saying be more like Denmark? And is it that much different when it comes to vaccinology? And if it is, why?
So the U.S., first of all, is nothing like Denmark. I mean, the things that the U.S. and Denmark have in common.
I've been to Denmark and the U.S. I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small Scandinavian country that has like the population of Maryland, I think, and it's much geographically smaller than the U.S., obviously, and more importantly, it has a different form of government and it has a different form of nationalized health system. It also has different risks for different diseases, and so when Denmark has a childhood vaccine schedule that has fewer vaccines on it, those have been made with the population of Denmark in mind by Danish scientists who are very, very good, very evidence-based. The one thing I find very interesting is that the studies that Tracy Hoag and all these Danish loving people never bring up are the studies like by Anders Vik from the Serum Statins Institute that showed that aluminum salt adjuvants do not cause autism. And in fact, Kennedy wrote a statistical critique over the summer for a blog about Anders Vik's paper.
Do you think he really wrote it? You think he really wrote it?
Well, it wasn't very robust, in my opinion, as a vaccine journal editor. And Anders Vik did not think it was very robust either, because he then wrote a rebuttal, which was, I thought, quite priceless and very Danish. It was very restrained, yet also at the same time completely brutal. So, Denmark has made these decisions in an evidence-based way, in a way that's right for the people of Denmark. The US is a much bigger geographical country, and I can say that culturally, American people, even Scandinavian Americans, I mean, my relatives, who are all, a lot of them are Trump voters, Norwegian Americans, would not necessarily get along with people in Norway. I don't know that they would view things in the government, for example, or economic systems or healthcare systems the same way at all as people who are actually Norwegian. It's a very different culture than the US, even though there are some things in common. And, I just think that it makes no sense at all to just say we're going to copy this other country, because mostly Tracy Hoag has made this into her thing that, yeah, we love Denmark. And the HHS right now is just currently populated with people who are all in the same circle of COVID contrarians, especially the FDA. So Vinay Prasad, the director of CBER, which is the top vaccine regulator in the US, her counterpart, and she and the FDA commissioner, Marty Makary, have all written papers together about this kind of thing, where we need to have fewer vaccines. Oh, COVID vaccines cause myocarditis. Da, 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 da. We don't like vaccine mandates. We think natural immunity is very good. And this thing that this Danish researcher who's been awarded this grant is into, and it's called non-specific effects. And this is the idea that if you give somebody a vaccine, any vaccine, it has non-specific effects. So not just against measles, mumps, and rubella or hepatitis B virus, it also creates these inflammatory effects that are not specific for that particular thing. Okay. Now that's true to a degree, because you do have inflammatory and innate immune responses to a vaccination or an infection. But the idea that this sort of sticks around and can potentially cause problems years later and kill people years later, or kill people if they get a different vaccine that's incompatible, is ridiculous. And nobody actually agrees that non-specific effects are something that have a big enough impact to actually make any kind of difference clinically. But the group that has been awarded this grant, they definitely believe in non-specific effects, and they have used non-specific effects in the past to actually both argue for and against vaccines. So during the COVID pandemic, they were arguing that people should be vaccinated with the the oral polio vaccine. There's a whole bunch of problems with doing that. The oral polio vaccine, because it would protect people against COVID. Because even though the vaccine's against polio, it creates these non-specific effects that make you more resistant to viruses in general. And maybe there's some truth to that, but nobody's ever shown actually that those non-specific effects would actually be meaningful. So that's what they think, and that's kind of what they've shown in this cohort of people in Guinea-Bissau that they've been working with for decades. Because there is such high child mortality, they have a big effect size. So if they want to argue that, oh, these kids got, the BCG vaccine, which is a tuberculosis vaccine that they give in some countries, they got the BCG vaccine, and then years later they got, the MMR, and then this number died, then maybe that's because of non-specific effects. So it's kind of this sort of, nebulous thing, but that's what they're arguing, and they can sort of shape it however they like. And that's, I think, why this grant was awarded, because it's designed to generate the type of data that Kennedy would need to justify making America like Denmark.
Wow. Man, oh man, oh man, it's funny, unless anybody gets an opportunity to speak to someone like you, someone who's an expert, world-renowned virologist, infectious disease expert, someone who spends her time trying to create diseases, understand pandemics, understand how pandemics and disease spreads, how they become endemic, how people die, the risks associated with them, how they start, and the context behind it. You never get to the point of but why? And the why here is fascinating talking to you because the why here is that the certain people in the Trump regime in the American government are spending money to possibly kill people on a remote island so that they can change policy in the United States, make more money for their alternative wellness friends, and kill Americans and kill children and tell everybody that it's healthier for the rest. It's eugenics, it's survival of the fittest. Even though they're not going to say that part out loud, I know RFK Jr. feels that way. I know Peter Thiel feels that way. I know Mark Zuckerberg feels that way. I know Elon Musk feels that way. These guys are all eugenicists, all of them,
Mhm.
every single one. They're all technocrats. They're all people that are, hey, we're at the top of the pile, survival of the fittest. Elon Musk, I don't know how many animals he sacrificed with his Neuralink. I don't know how many beings he's put that chip. I mean, these people do not value human life, so it doesn't matter to them. Got to be frustrating for someone like you who's on the front lines with actual scientific information, watching someone go to an island, grant a study in another country to bring it back to the United States to try to convince everybody that what you're doing is not healthy for Americans.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least. It sucks. That's why I have a therapist.
I thought it was this. Are you talking about these Substack lives, our new health
No,
structure?
no, I have a therapist just because I'm, watching like the wave of child death that's basically about to happen and trying to figure out like how to stop it. And I mean, so are all my colleagues. It just really sucks because it feels oftentimes like there's not that much you can actually do to stop it with all these people in power, and they just have to be removed. I mean, before we can really do anything that meaningful about it. But I think for now, one of the only things you can do is try to hold them accountable for it and try to like make people aware of what's happening. One of the hardest things about it is just trying to explain like all of these things, because like you start explaining like how federal grants are awarded and like how vaccines are regulated and how this branch of the FDA does this and this one does this, and then we have like this other committee that does this, and they make these recommendations, and like I mean, people just tune out because it's boring. It really is. But that's actually at least in science and health, I mean, that's like where the battleground is. Like it's
Mm.
administrative exploitation of administrative loopholes, of bureaucratic loopholes, exploitation of a system that is not designed to withstand essentially an attack from within like this. We've never had a Secretary of Health and Human Services who is directly opposed to the health and providing human services for the American people. And so the system just is not very resilient to that. And so it just becomes a matter of trying to figure out how to stop this and actually how to even tell people what's going on. Because while the consequences of this is mass child death, that's not going to happen right away. It's not necessarily going to happen all at once. And because our healthcare system and our public health system has been so depleted, we won't actually be able to notice it until it's gotten really, really bad. And so, trying to tell people now, like that this is when the intervention needs to occur, because the longer that you wait and the more vaccines they get pulled, the more carnage eventually is going to happen, but it's not going to happen immediately. And so people might not make that connection. So, I mean, I just feel like I'm also really furious at these people and I can't stand them. And I can't believe that so many of these clowns like are in charge. Like, I cannot believe that Vinay Prasad, who looks like a fucking Muppet, is in charge of he's a top vaccine regulator in the US.
And
Like,
he's completely an anti-vaxxer who's
I've been
all
having
up in the grift.
I've had like Twitter fights with the FDA commissioner, the NIH director, the CBER director and the CEDAR director, all of these, and multiple members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices since 2020. At one point, Robert Malone told me that he wished me hugs and kisses. Um, I just like I know who these people are, and I just can't believe that they're in charge because for 4 years, like during the pandemic, they were total fucking jokes. But now they're not jokes anymore because they're the least qualified people to be in these roles, and they are determined to do their job, which is to destroy the federal government and kill plenty of people in the process.
Mm. Dr. Angela Rasmussen, everybody needs to go and follow her. The Chiron at the top, it's gray. It says Dean Blundell and Dr. Angela Rasmussen at Rasmussen Retorts is the name of your handle. But if you just put in Dr. Angela Rasmussen, you can follow her here. She's got well over 500,000 followers on Twitter. Stay out of that cesspool, though. We go there because we have to, and it's fun. But please give her a follow, give her a sub. We're going to try to give these health talks once a week where we kind of get underneath a certain subject that really is going to affect Americans on the long term. And it all sits around, the kakistocracy and the idiocracy in the United States of America. I found that, there was scattershot, right? We deal a lot with the Epstein files. We deal a lot with rigged elections, the daily deluge of absolute bullshit and idiocy from Donald Trump and the people around him, ICE goons, foreign policy, Ukraine. And I felt like the health conversation really needed to sit in a different bucket. And so I'm really grateful that I get a chance to do this with you on a weekly basis. There is no one on this planet that I listen to more than you, and I have for years prior to even meeting you. When it comes to getting that information, knowing that the United States is actively blocking information, responsible information about measles, mumps, rubella, about measles, about outbreaks. What sources can you quickly give everybody that's watching? We got about 1,000 people watching on my end now. What sources would you suggest to people that are in these affected states, or are just worried that they're going to get run over by disinformation, where they can get accurate information about the efficacy, where to get a measles and mumps, rubella shot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so this is really tough because there's not just one place. If people are in one of these states that has formed a coalition, like the Western States Coalition, which is Washington, Oregon, California, and I think Hawaii, you can get information from your states. I do not recommend, under any circumstances at this point, that people rely on the CDC. The CDC, I can't even believe that I'm saying this, but the CDC has been putting out disinformation about vaccines. The CDC is not a reliable source of information, unfortunately. I wrote a big piece about flu today, and I based most of my information on Canadian surveillance data, just because Canada does have an intact, functioning public health system right now.
Yeah, and you can go to the Canadian Health Inspection Agency website. If you go to CanadianHealthInspectionAgency.com, Canadianhealth.com, you can actually check out. There's a great resource for Americans too. Is my point.
Yeah, totally. Anything that actually the U.S. has, if you're looking for flu data, for example, or guidance, the Canadian data is often fairly similar. So you can just Google that, and anything from the government of Canada is indeed reliable. So grateful to be living here. But other sources would be stuff like the American Academy of Pediatrics. Actually, they've come out with their own vaccine schedule. There's another coalition called the Vaccine Integrity Project that's run by Mike Osterholm at the University of Minnesota. And Mike is a fantastic resource. They put out reports, including they just put out one on the HPV vaccine. They put out guidance, and a lot of it's really accessible for the general public. So I would say any of those places would be great. Your state, professional association, the Vaccine Integrity Project. Do not go to the CDC. And the government of Canada. Go to the government of Canada.
That's got to kill you to say that. I mean, no.
I live in Canada now, so
I know.
I'm okay with it.
Don't go to the CDC website.
That does kill me, but not because go to Canada instead.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad PHAC is getting a little love, the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Oh, God bless you. Love you. Always love talking to you. I know we had such an incredible reaction from people. I'm seeing it in the chat right now. This is kind of health therapy for people. They're trying to gum up our brains and tell us, oh, you might not need it. You might need it. You might not need it. But new data is coming. We've got new data. They don't have any fucking new data. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with Tylenol. Choke it back. Enjoy it all. It's not going to give your kid autism. Go get all your vaccines, all of them. Stay on schedule. Don't listen to a fucking word anybody in that regime says about your health. Listen to people like Dr. Angela Rasmussen. Make sure you give her a follow. Hit that great chyron at the top. Hammer those hearts. Share that little box with the arrow on it. Send this to people who don't believe in science, whose brains have been warped over the past 5 to 6 years, because this is a very important conversation. This travels across all vaccine conversations, whether it be COVID, whether it be HPV, whether it be hepatitis. The measles conversation today is sort of ground zero for that because it's front of mind. And we didn't get into the scary projections if this continues, but the importance that Dr. Angela Rasmussen has sort of uncovered here is we got to get these people out. You got to get these people out before that projection becomes reality. Thanks for doing this, sister. It is so good to see you again.
Always good.
Stay warm in Saskatchewan.
I will. And hey, everybody, get your flu shots too.
Yes.
I think I have the flu. I'm not that sick because I got my flu shot.
Extreme vaccine enthusiast, Dr. Angela Rasmussen, world-renowned virologist. Give her a follow here. Thanks for doing this. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Dean. Take care.
You got it. There's Dr. Angela. She is awesome. You need her in your life. I say it every time I talk to her. Everybody needs to have her in their life. But she's fun at a dinner party in Saskatchewan, especially at a rural farm community. What do? I'm a world-renowned virologist, and I love vaccines. Ugh. Vaccines kind of like the Mississippi of, or sorry, not vaccines. Saskatchewan's kind of like the Mississippi of Canada. Alberta or Alberta-Bama, kind of like the Alabama of Canada. Rural places. That's where it's the most fresh. This measles bullshit's the most fresh. Places where people don't have access to books and things. Or just the Bible. Crazy. Have a great day, everybody. We'll be back at 3 o'clock for the 5 stack in about 1 hour from now. We'll go over the top 5 trending stories. It's Epstein Files E. We'll get to that. We got a couple of other issues that we got to take care of today with my friend Zev Shalev. I believe Ellie Leonard might be joining us as well, the famed panicked writer who's read every single Epstein email. What to expect tomorrow, and we'll get to last night's disastrous, and I mean just a disaster speech by Donald Trump. That was just a desperate, literal, desperate nervous breakdown, the most desperate nervous breakdown I've ever seen on live TV. Anyway, we'll see you at 5 stack. We'll talk about it at 3 o'clock. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate you being part of our lives in this podcast. We've got 25% off of our annual subscriptions where you can chat with us like you did today. You can ask questions like you did today. We'll get to those questions. And I think it's $80 for the year, and you lock that price in, and you get unlimited access to all the paid content, all the exclusive chats, and Substack lives like this. Founders never pay again once you pay. I think it's like $150. You got a membership for life and $8 a month. But more importantly, just subscribe, just share. Make sure this conversation gets into the ears and the eyes of people who truly need to see it. Thank you again for your time. Love you all as always. We'll see you at 3 o'clock on the 5 stack, guys. Bye now.